Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today is a very important day for the Battlefield franchise. There's going to be a live stream later showing off Battlefield 1 gameplay. I'm going to be part of this live stream along with many other YouTubers, media members, and other Battlefield veterans. Now, the information we have regarding Battlefield 1 is still fairly limited, but there's some things that I would suggest looking out for when watching the live stream event. These are things that I'm going to be focusing on. One of my biggest concerns is going to be map design. How open are the maps? Is there going to be enough cover? Is there going to be a good enough balance so that infantry can fight against armor and vehicles effectively, or is it just going to be insane? Some of the biggest changes made to the Battlefield franchise are map design philosophies. Bad Company 2 had maps that were kind of segregated into different combat areas, so you didn't necessarily have to worry about people on one end of the map. If you're on the other end, you could kind of focus on your own little area. Battlefield 3 implemented a lot of these design mechanics and made maps like Grand Bazaar or Sen Crossing or Domovan Peak, where the combat areas were kind of divided efficiently and effectively so you could focus on your own. Battlefield 4 got away from a lot of those concepts of map design, and I'm very curious to see what Battlefield 1 does. I hope it goes back towards the Battlefield 3 philosophy a bit and gives us more sectioned off map design rather than the big open hyper-realistic map design where you have to worry about the guy 10 feet in front of you, you have to worry about the sniper 1,000 meters away, you have to worry about the aircraft overhead and the tank in the distance and landmines and all this other stuff going on all at the same time. I'm hoping that they, on some level, remember that this is a game and that the maps don't have to be insanely realistic to the point where it detriments the gameplay. So yeah, while we're all analyzing the stream footage and trying to figure out what kind of weapons are in the game and how each gun works and functions like that, that's all fun and cool and topical stuff really. I'm more interested in the underlying game mechanics. So player spawning, are we going to be dying in our spawns all the time? Is there going to be so much artillery spam that we won't be able to get out of spawns? Is there going to be too much air domination, vehicle domination? How powerful will infantry be? Is it going to be too focused on trench warfare? Will it be not enough focused on trench warfare? I'm looking for the underlying game mechanics rather than just like, oh, this machine gun has 40 bullets and it reloads at this speed. That kind of information can be interesting for game balance and sort of perfecting your gameplay, but at this point I'm much more interested in the overall design philosophy behind the game and how it's going to play out compared to current and past Battlefields. Now, the other thing that I'm looking forward to, but will also be looking out for, is the fact that everything's so retro, there shouldn't be any sort of lock-on or auto-aim type weaponry in the game. They're saying it's all very analog. You have to aim your gun, shoot, account for bullet drop, account for distance, all that kind of stuff. I was about to say wind speed. I don't think they'll have wind speed in the game. That would be kind of crazy though. But just having all those kind of higher skill elements in the game sounds really cool, but will the game be a higher skill, less casual oriented Battlefield? That's something that has yet to be seen, and it's hard to say because DICE especially has been designing games with Battlefront stuff that seem to be much more casually oriented, and I am a little bit concerned that because of the growing market share of Battlefield and the massive player base, casual design is definitely something that's attractive for growing your player base and increasing your revenue and all that kind of stuff. I just hope they don't go too far in that direction to the point where it can actually be a detriment to veteran players or people who want a higher skill ceiling. Something that'll be interesting to watch for and just try and get a feeling of from watching the live stream or playing the game for myself will be the relationship of weapons to the size of the maps. Now, this is a big thing in game design, is like damage models and weapon accuracy and all that kind of stuff is very much tied into how maps are designed, and if they're not in line with each other, the game might not feel right. What they've talked about in the Battlefield reveal event is that they're trying to make a lot of the weapons cater more towards close quarter combat. They're trying to get combat more up close and more personal. I mean, soldiers in this war had to literally siege into other people's trenches and just like get crazy up close and fight with shotguns and melee weapons and all that kind of stuff, which sounds really cool. It'll be interesting to see how this translates into a Battlefield game, especially a Battlefield game that has had so many titles that have been in modern combat and modern warfare with assault rifles and DMRs and all these weapons that are incredibly effective at medium to longer range combats. I mean, just dropping people with assault rifles in Battlefield 4 right now is very easy to do, even at like 50 meters away. Will that be something that's possible in Battlefield 1, or will there be a lot more rushing and getting up close to people? Considering that the assault rifle isn't really going to be a classification of weapon in this game, what is going to replace that? Will it be sort of run and gun machine guns? Will there sort of be DMR style weapons that take the place? How good are SMGs going to be at range? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be asked here, and it'll be very interesting to see how that changes the Battlefield dynamic. I mean, snipers could be incredibly more powerful in this game if they're the only classes that have true ranged power. Then we have the infantry versus armor dynamic, which I'm very interested to see how this plays out. So think about this. In Battlefield 4, we've got the engineer. They have access to a whole variety of rocket launchers, both for locking on and dumbfiring and taking out ground targets, and specialized for taking out air targets. There's a huge amount of rocket weapons. In Battlefield 1, there's not going to be any. So we've already seen that they're going to have sort of a C4 equivalent that looks like it's just going to be like dynamite or something. But that means the dynamic between vehicles and infantry is going to change. Infantry are going to have to get closer to vehicles. Does that mean that vehicles are going to be less effective at range and that they'll also need to get closer to infantry to deal out damage? We also know that tanks are going to support a lot of infantry inside of them now. So is there going to be a much heavier team-based, squad-based mechanic with big armored vehicles? Are they going to play completely differently to tanks in Battlefield 4? These will be things that I'm looking out for and trying to answer during this stream. There's also the element of destruction. Now, Battlefield 3 had pretty decent destruction. Bad Company 2, as many people think, had the best destruction overall, or at least the most extensive in the sense that you could level entire cities. They toned it back in BF3, but added other cool things like Rebel Drop. Battlefield 4 took away Rebel Drop, oddly, and added in Levolution. What is Battlefield 1 going to do? We know the game is going to be a big visual leap forward. I can tell you from personal experience that it will without question be a huge visual leap forward, which is exciting. But that's not necessarily going to make or break a game these days anymore. I mean, Battlefield 4 is a great looking game. Just because they push the graphics a bit further doesn't mean it's going to be instantaneously successful. The destruction element is definitely something that I'm curious to see, and see how big a role it plays in the new Battlefield. Because the trailer that we saw indicated that there could be much more dynamic destruction, like airplanes crashing into stone towers and watching them crumble after that. That would be something cool to see that hasn't really been put into previous Battlefield games. And then they show like aerial combat and blowing off parts of airplanes, like rather than the whole airplane just exploding or being done, having it come apart piece by piece. Vehicles being more dynamic with destruction would be a very cool update in addition to the game. Now, how about squad-based dynamics or spawn-based dynamics as well? We've got the squad system, we've got the squad spawning system. This has changed a lot throughout Battlefield games. It'll be interesting to see if there's any updates or massive changes to the way it currently works. I mean, one of the weirder issues with Battlefield that no other shooters really have is spawning on a teammate and instantaneously dying. You have the option to risk spawning on a teammate and then immediately dying because you're in action, but there's sort of been weird evolutions or ways to try and fix the spawn system so that people engaging other players in combat don't just see another player pop up next to them and then gun them down because of the squad spawning system. It's always been this weird dynamic, and I'm very curious to see if they change that up for the new game, or if there's been any sort of evolution to the overall spawn system or squad system. The teamwork in this game is so heavily based on being able to stay with your squad and spawn on your squad members and work together in close proximity. Were they to get rid of this element of the game, it would make it much harder to stay with your squad and work together with other teammates. So I think it's still a pretty essential part of the game. It just needs a bit of refinement, in my opinion, and I would love to see what the new Battlefield's take on this is. And then last but not least of things to watch out for during this live stream is game modes. How are the game modes going to change and update or be affected? Is Rush still going to be in the game? Are they going to update it? Is it going to be a different thing? How big a part is Conquest going to play? Battlefield games have changed dynamically in this way, where Bad Company didn't really focus on Conquest as their premier game mode, but rather Rush. Will Conquest still be the premier game mode in Battlefield 1? Will it be Rush? Will it be something entirely new? That is definitely something to keep your eyes out for. Anyway, that kind of wraps it up for this video. Keep your eyes peeled during the live stream. If you want a link to the live stream or the times that it's going to go on, check the video description. I'll have that information down there. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later today. This is LevelCap signing off.